Hello, everyone. Life of Emerald stands for mind, body, and soul. We are a studio co-creating a positive movement around the world via sharing ancient wisdom, spirituality, and practical healing strategies with thought leaders. A simple and practical lifestyle to promote both physical and mental well-being. I am Kate, the founder, and our sacred guest is Kim White. Hi, Kim.
Hi, okay. Thanks for inviting me. This is great.
Thanks for making the time to be with us.
Mm-hmm.
So Kim White is a life architect and the KWC team. He transformed blockages and limitations into freedom, peace, and goal achievement. Kim and his team work on homes, businesses, and individuals. The transformational healing is done with God's unconditional love and compassion, and results are immediate. Kim, really nice to have you here. We have some questions for our audience. Are you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So could you please share with our audience how you contribute your talent and time to the world?
So, I have a passion for helping people to grow, humanity to grow, and for everyone to reach their full potential or to head in that direction. And my mission is to help people to become more in touch with their intuition so that they can really have a great life. Because when you follow your intuition, life is easy, life is flowing. And I believe that intuition is God talking with us. So when we're praying to God, we're talking to God or meditating with God, it's like, great, but then we've got to get a return. And the return is our intuition. So God speaks to us through our intuition to guide us through our path of life for the greatest life experience, and to stay in our hearts and to really be in that compassion and enjoyment of life. And so I really bring that through my work to my clients to help them to get closer and closer to their intuition and to follow it. Most people can sense their intuition or hear it, but they don't have the strength to follow it because they get too much conditioning from life experience that stops them from blockages that stops them from following their intuition. So I work to remove those blockages. And my unique ability is to be able to sense where there's a block with a person. If I know where they want to go, I can see what's in the way, and my skills and my training is to be able to remove those blocks.
Oh, interesting. Wow, interesting. You know, the intuition alone is a topic that is a little bit needs work. What I mean by that is we need to sort of peel the onion layer that is associated with the word intuition. And I'm grateful that you mentioned about intuition and the importance of it. And I would love to understand how you got in touch with your intuition, and could you please tell us one or two personal stories which have shaped your worldview today?
So I've always been very spiritual. I was raised Catholic, although my parents were never strict at all. I sort of felt the calling on my own to go to church on my own. As a kid growing up, I'd jump on my bike and ride up to church, to mass, and just to be with God, because I just had this connection. And so I always had that, and I would always pray, and not realizing why until later in life when I found my career with the healing. So it started out where I was an athlete, runner, and I was very high level. So I was training for the Olympics, and I got injured a week before the Olympic trials. So it's completely stopped my career. And so I started this path of searching, how did I get injured? Why did I get injured? Why did I stop? Why did I make this mistake? And so this led me down a path of studying the mind-body connection. And then through kinesiology, I was studying the science of movement and how it relates to our emotions. I started to discover all these blockages, and I wanted to get rid of them because I love to grow. So it was like, okay, how can I get rid of this? How can I get rid of that? And I just kept working with it. I found I really had a passion for that. And then my friends would see the changes in me and say, hey, can you help me too? And so I'd help them. And I was at university at the time studying, and I just decided when I graduated, I was going to go to graduate school, and I thought, well, let me take the year off and see if I can do something with this work. And I immediately got successful, and I had a practice out in West LA. And then I moved to Australia a year later and set up my business in Australia. And it just grew from there. And then the spiritual side, I was always praying, but I had more of a scientific mind around growth. And even though I'd pray and ask God for guidance, I would use the kinesiology, or I'd use different modalities to find answers. And then I realized one day that I actually didn't need them, because my intuition was there. God was telling me the answers to my questions. So that way it was like, oh, okay, if I just follow my intuition, everything flows. And then I'd start to talk to my clients about that, and they'd say, can you help me with that too? And so some stories, like the clients I work with in the first sort of 20 or 15 years of my business, a lot of them, they were developing their intuition and growing, making all their decisions with their intuition instead of their brain. They use their brain for calculating and use their heart, their intuition, for life choices. And a lot of them, it's funny, in 2008, when the stock market crash happened, a lot of my clients pulled out of the market just before. And their stockbrokers were saying, are you crazy? This is the height of, this is great. And they said, no, I'm out. Like, they were so adamant because they had that strength to follow their intuition. And so they pulled out of the market and invested in real estate. And suddenly they did very well. So they were free from the crash. And that's an example of how the intuition can help. Another example is a client I've been working with, and he got an intuition. He has a very big company, and he got an intuition where there was a discrepancy where someone was being employed off the books. And it was like, how did he just knew something wasn't wrong. So he was asking, and he found out within 3 days that it was true. Someone had been employed that wasn't on the books and wasn't working with the company. And so that's how his intuition was so good. Even though he has a big company, he could find there was something wrong. God was telling him, this is wrong. Something's not right here. So there's a couple of examples in business. And then with sport, working with the athletes, pro basketball or football or baseball players, helping them in the gym when they're working out in the gym to adjust their body movements to maximize their power, because they were just doing an exercise like you see on the chart. This is how you do it. But if they just slightly tilted their leg or their belly or whatever, because of the flow of energy, they got a better result. So that's why intuition was guiding me where the energy wasn't flowing right. And so just doing a slight adjustment, they got results there. Wow. So there's some examples.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So the first example of your clients pulling their stocks out right before that 2008 market crash. In a way, you help them to master their intuitive ability so that they can make the adjustment with certain level of faith, right? Mm-hmm. And then later, a couple of months later, they realize that they made the right decision. So sometimes when we follow the intuition, it's the counterintuitiveness, that comes up, and the tug between the head and the heart, right? So, and your second example, helping the athletes thrive. Are you aware of the energy? Is this how you're able to help them shift some part of their body to perform at the maximum level? Are you able to see the energy? How does that work?
I sense through my intuition that something's not right. So my intuition is saying this is not right. And so then I ask my intuition, okay, what is right? What is better for the person? How can I help them? And my mantra is always being, God, how may I serve? So asking God, how may I serve? So God can give me the answers. And so I say, okay, God, how can I help this person here? And then, just do it. It's like God will say, move the leg like this or move the wrist like that. And I say, okay. So they do it and they go, wow, this feels so much better. And so it's just you asking, so feeling The intuition is feeling something's not right because I know where they want to go. So something's in the way. And then asking the intuition, asking God, how may I serve? Or how can I help? Then God can give us the next answer. But of course, with the freedom of choice we all have, you don't have to ask that question, that second question. Like if you feel like you're walking down the street and you see a homeless person and you feel, oh, I want to give to them. It's a feeling deep inside. It's not a mental obligation. I have to give to everyone, because otherwise you go to some countries, you'll be broke in an hour, you know? So you have to give from inspiration, which is God's intuition, God speaking to you. So God's inspiring you to give, versus an obligation because of our upbringing or our training, our mental side. So following that and just trusting the feeling to do it, or trusting the feeling, don't go into that restaurant, or don't, and you don't know why, it doesn't make sense to the mind, it just seems like a normal restaurant, but everything says don't do it. Or your intuition says go down this road, you go, oh, okay, I'll drive down here, and you avoid a car accident. And it's like, wow, thank you, my intuition. So it's protecting you always. So the practice is to learn to trust the intuition and take immediate action on it. And the way I was trained, the way God trained me, which is really great, a couple of great stories. The first time it happened, this is when I was doing the kinesiology, I had a client come to the door and my intuition said, go and buy her flowers. There was a lady in her 50s at the time. And I'm like, what? And I was like, okay, I'll just do it. I'm practicing this intuition, so I'll do it. So I went and bought her, I said, we're going to go to the shops before we do our work. And we went down the shops and I bought her a bouquet of flowers. And I said, here, this is for you. And she just burst out crying because no one had ever given her flowers in her whole life.
Oh.
And that was the whole healing.
Yeah.
So there's no way my mind would have said, I need to buy this lady flowers. It's just like so far from my reality. So my intuition said to do it, and that was the healing. Once she received the flowers and started crying, it released all this pain she'd been carrying her whole life. It was fantastic. And the second example, a client came to the door, and this was a client who was a friend. And I opened the door and she said, hi. And I said, oh, you need to go out the back and do some cartwheels. And she's like, what? And I'm like, and she said, well, Kim, I trust you, so I'm going to do it. So she went and did this cartwheel in the backyard, and like that, her issue was gone.
What?
So it was the issue she came to clear was gone. So it was another example of God showing me the intuition is not logical. And that was my training. And so I was like, wow, and it was like, okay, I trust. And so I would learn to trust from there. And that was over 20 years ago when that one happened. And then another time, which is on the spiritual side, I had this intuition where there was a ghost and I was suddenly feeling scared. Mm-hmm. And my intuition said to me, you weren't scared a minute ago. And I go, oh, it's not my fear. It's the spirit's fear. Ah. I was feeling the emotion of the spirit who was lost in the darkness, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like immediately this compassion came through me and I just wanted to help. Oh. Instead of running away, which we would normally do as a human, we can feel the fear and we just run, to actually turn it around and say, well, how may I serve? Yeah. And that was a big lesson and I like to share this with people so they can understand if there is a ghost around or some darkness, understand it's not all, if you felt good a minute ago, it's not you. It's the energy you're feeling in the space. So you don't have to be afraid. You just can have compassion for that spirit.
Oh, wow. Kim, this is healing for me as well. So thank you for that,
You're welcome.
And I believe everyone meets each other at a specific time. And there is a saying, when the student is ready, teacher appears, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And my experience in 2009, I experienced ghosts in San Francisco. and I called my friend and didn't know what to say about the ghost. So hence the phone to his mother by saying, okay, here's talk to my mom. She's a psychologist. And I told her about the ghost story, and she said, you are crazy, go back to your country. And that's when my healer journey happened. You know, the my soul escaped my body, and that was an initiation of a healer according to research. Anyway, that ghost story, thank you for sharing with our audience that these realms do exist, and providing us the tool to have compassion to help them melt that fear away for them on behalf of them, because you can do that in a human body. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well,
and also your intuition will guide you when something, like when I've done work in the early days, my intuition would say, don't do this. And because I would get hurt. Me being the instrument would be hurt because the energy I was dealing with was bigger than my energy. So, or my capacity to be able to help, to be able to serve. So learning to trust that, not to do what is guided, not to do what is beyond your capacity. It's like giving algebra to a kindergarten child. You know, you just don't do that, or calculus, because it's beyond their capacity. They can grow to it later, but not to expect them to do it there. So it was like a learning as well for me to have that respect and honor for my limitations. And of course, because of my passion for growth, I just want to, when I have that situation, I want to be able to grow so I can help in the future. So it's cool. And I always ask, okay, God, I can't do it. Who can help them? And I'll be guided to guide them in a certain direction to help them. So, so you're still being the helper.
Yeah. Kim, thanks for sharing that bit. Now, our third question for our audience is this. What is your understanding of the current state of planet Earth or the collective consciousness?
Oh, that's a big question. So Mother Earth, the planet, I always know she is her own being. So she will always cleanse herself when she needs it. She will grow when she needs it. She will remove or adjust her energies as she needs, just like we do as humans. So if we feel a bit sore, we'll move our body into the right place to feel better. So we come into balance. So I always believe that the planet will always bring itself into balance. And so that, so I'm never concerned about Mother Earth because she will take care of herself. Of course, our responsibility as humans on the planet is to give to her, to protect her, do what we can to nourish her and improve our surroundings. I always believe, you know, it's always better to leave a place better than when you arrived, so that you, it's like you're giving again. So, but I also know that Mother Earth will adjust. If something's out of balance, she'll adjust to herself to correct whatever the situation is. As far as the collective consciousness, I'm a big believer in we're all connected and that we can be influenced by our environment, by the people we hang out with, and also that goes for consciousness in places, consciousness in countries, cities, villages, all the way down, even the consciousness of a family home. And through my work of cleaning buildings and homes, like I'll give you an example where a couple got me in, and this is another example of intuition, right? They called me in because they were having marital problems in their new home. And the reason they called me in was because when they were out of the home, they were fine. But when they were home, they were fighting. And so they knew, they didn't take it personally. They knew it's not us, it's the building. So they called me in to clear the building. And as soon as I walked in the building, I asked them, are you sleeping in separate rooms? And they said, no, we're together. I said, well, the energy in this house the consciousness of the house is separation. So that's why they were constantly in this tension, because their hearts couldn't open to be together until they left the house. And we did some research and we found there was a really bad divorce separation that happened, and everyone who lived in the house afterwards all separated. So it took the fifth couple to live there who knew their intuition was there's something wrong with the house, it's not us, to ask for help. So we corrected it and then the problem went away. But it was like the consciousness that was a residue from a previous incident that was there. And then, like, I'm living in a beautiful city in Vienna. There's energy here, there's consciousness here that has been from all the wars, all the plagues, everything through history that's happened here is still here. So I'm very aware of the consciousness. So, and I see how people are responding or reacting to the consciousness in the environment. And that's why they just love to get out into the countryside, because suddenly they feel better. And it's just a little bit out, it's 20 minutes out of the city. It's just because of the consciousness is influencing them. So, of course, I'm always asking, well, how can I improve the consciousness and what can I do to help the space to make it better so that the good consciousness starts to grow? And that's where everyone as an individual can start to build up even their own thinking, the thinking energy that comes out of our minds into our environment can have influence on others. So what are your thoughts? Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they empowering? Are they disempowering? Are they giving or taking? And so it's like, and catching yourself when you notice you're not being your natural self and say, no, this is not me. And this is what I teach my clients. It's like, when that comes, you say to that, I call it darkness because it's just as a label, but you say to the darkness, this is my life, or this is my home, wherever you are. This is my space. You're not welcome here. Leave now in the name of God. And you say it with so much conviction and faith in the name of God that it's like gone. And some people like to take a deep breath and blow it out of their home or whatever. And like that, it changes, because you as a child of God have that power. Our minds are weaker and we'll get sucked into it, because our minds are like a computer. It just does whatever it's fed. Okay. So whereas our hearts are always stronger. So by telling that energy to leave, you suddenly change the consciousness in your home, and then you can start to build, and you can build the energy for more good in the space, and then it starts to go out into the world. You can take that energy out into the world. So that's how we can influence the consciousness. When I look at the when I see mass consciousnesses of countries, or I remember when I was in Los Angeles during the riots in '91, the riots were on one side of the street but not the other. It's the same street. Why is that? Because this consciousness of this suburb was different to the consciousness of this suburb. It's one street, but there was all damage on one side of the road but nothing on the other. And that's when I knew there's something in the difference in consciousness. Why should it not be affected? So how much can we influence? When you have a mass consciousness, sometimes people get more into their head instead of following their intuition. If they follow their intuition instead of buying into, say, all the media or whatever. Oh, here's an example, right? COVID, our present situation. So I was noticing during the lockdown, the first lockdown in March, there was all this darkness coming into the house. And I'm like, where is this coming from? And so I prayed and asked, and God showed me to get a white candle and bless it, and then it would just suck up all the energy. So I did it, and as soon as the darkness was removed from the house, I was like, oh, that's great. And then the next day it was back again. I go, what's going on? It's back again. So I did it again with the candle, and it went away. Anyway, I found out the energy was coming through the TV and all through the social media into the house. So it was the fear consciousness about the virus was permeating, it was growing. The fear consciousness was a virus itself. And it was influencing the consciousness, the thinking of the people that were viewing. And so I set up these big candles that would go almost 24 hours a day. And what I noticed when I put in these homes, the people stopped listening to the TV or listening to the social media, because the light was bigger than the darkness. So they didn't do it on purpose. I just noticed they weren't turning on the TV as much. And I was like, well, this is really good. So this is how you can have a positive impact. So that's a consciousness energy that's being, where our technology is actually expanding the consciousness. Just the same as we have a technology like Live Aid or one of those big concerts back in the 80s, who was able to spread that consciousness across the planet of good, of helping. And then as a result, the poverty levels on the planet have gone down since, it's just amazing. So we can have a positive or a negative influence through our media and through our technology. Mm-hmm. As well as our own walking down the street and putting that good energy out, that consciousness out into the world. Mm-hmm. But when we're afraid, we pull all the energy in for self-preservation, so we can't give anything. And that way the darkness wins. So we're going to beat the darkness. So.
I hear you deeply, and I really appreciate you pointing out the intricacy of the unseen energy that can exist in a living space. Mm-hmm. And the couple example you gave is peculiar from a perspective of an outsider, peculiar, and it could easily be, pointed the finger at, oh, this couple are not compatible. We could say that, definitely. But you're bringing the information that it could be that consciousness of that environment that affects people. And you mentioned about our sovereign power in the heart space to say, you no longer is welcome here. That word darkness you used as a label just to make it simple. And when we don't know these technology or techniques, and also the knowledge itself that these things, invisible things exist, these invisible things do affect our behavior, then we can't really do anything much about it. So I want to say that, I'm really grateful for you articulating this fact of the unseen. And I believe science is catching up, and we don't know when it will show in evidence. But the evidence that you and I know we have is the behavioral change in your clients immediately after that healing of that space. This is really validating the unseen realm. Mm-hmm. And the work that we do is bridging the gap between spirituality and the material realm. And life gets more fun this way, when we add into the multidimensional aspect, and we can heal things that are unseen, but benefits our behavior long-term, short-term. Yeah. Well, Kim.
That's why I love being on these podcasts, because I can share these things that people can do to help themselves and their families and their communities and so forth. So thank you. Spread the word.
Welcome. Kim, do you have one simple practical thing that our audience can implement in their lives right now?
Sure. If they go to my website, there's a download they can get for, it's called the cutting off technique. And it's a technique that you can use all the time to disconnect from, you could call them energy vampires or people who suck your energy, and also disconnect from situations that are hurtful to you, so that you can, and it's a free download, just put your name in and I'll send it to you. And this is a wonderful technique for people to do. Mm-hmm. So that's kimwhitecoaching.com, and they can download that and enjoy the benefits of the cutting off technique. And I would teach this to, in the early days, I would teach it to, well, first I used it for myself when I was studying to get really ready for exams, because everyone brings their stress into the exam, all the other people. So I got to a point where I could be going to the exam and saw my grades go up because of not having that influence. And then I would teach it to business sales reps who would, like if someone was doing a lot of sales calls and then they would get a call that really put them down, and they'd be out for 2 or 3 hours where they couldn't function because it was so dramatic. Uh-huh. And after I taught them the technique, they were back in a minute,
Mm.
back to normal, because they're back to their own energy, their own self. And people, when they do the technique, if they don't feel any difference, there was nothing there. But if they do it and they feel a big difference, then they know there was something there. There was a cord that was draining their energy. And so this is a spiritual practice. It's not a mental practice. So it will help people to really disconnect from draining energies so they can be really focused. And it's especially important for healers, doctors, nurses to use this technique after every client, because, and I do it every single client, because then they disconnect so they can be ready for the next patient or client. And because we're beings of energy, sometimes we'll want to go and give energy to someone, because say a friend is in hospital, so they're obviously sick, they need energy. So you go there and you give them energy, but then if you don't disconnect, you leave, you get exhausted afterwards. So it runs because you're still connected. So by disconnecting, you can recharge yourself and go back the next day and give them more energy. So this is more a way that you can give more and more to your friends and family and so forth.
This is really fun. This is really, really fun. Well, Kim, I would like to go back to that that point you mentioned about country and cities have consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And even that street in LA riot, one side didn't have that energy, one side had an energy. How do you merge that reality to a specific person's life purpose in that land for a certain time period? So for example, I was living in San Francisco 3 years. Right before COVID, I couldn't take it anymore, so I left. I left, and then COVID happened. Yeah. And I know that something called me back to Korea, and I'm really, really grateful to be here, because my body, I feel more lighter here. Yeah. And so I'm wondering the question about, okay, so these countries have energetic resonance, but why couldn't I, as an Asian woman, be okay in America, but other people are okay in America? You see what I mean?
So it's not necessarily because you are from a different culture or a different country. It's more, for me, it's more about what's the resonance in your heart. And so does a place, it's just like allergies. If you're allergic to a certain food, your body's rejecting the food or reacting to it. So you have a physiological reaction. Just when you go into a different vibration or a different consciousness, your body's going to react. And if you're strong enough, you can push that invading energy out of your space. And I do a lot of work with helping people to get stronger borders or boundaries, so that they have their space. They can be in this, it's like the Psalm, Psalm 23, walking through the valley of the shadow of death, all right? That you can actually walk down a dark alley and feel, if your intuition doesn't say don't go down there, right? But you can walk into a space and it's like it doesn't interfere with you, because your resistance is, your natural giving is strong enough to push it away. And if it comes, your intuition is going to tell you if this is the wrong place to be. It'll tell you don't go there. And so it's up to you to follow that, because that energy is stronger than your energy. So it's about the balance. And if you're giving, like people, we have freedom of choice. We can give good energy or we can give bad energy. But either way, we can influence. So depending on the level of our capacity to give, whether it's good or bad, that's going to have influence on the environment. And I know when I'm cleaning companies and the company will want some help, there might be 1 or 2 employees that are actually causing stress in the environment, in the teams, but no one has the strength to get them to move on. So I always ask, let's help them to get a better job that fits more with their environment. They leave the next day. Like, they don't even know I've been there to clear, but they find another job offer, or they just suddenly resign for some reason, or they call in sick. There's all these things that happen because it's like that bad apple in the cart. It starts to infect everyone, all the apples around it. It's the same thing. So you can also be the good apple in the cart and affect everyone. So you want to be stronger than your environment so you can have a positive impact. Now, if you had the strength to fill your apartment in San Francisco with that great energy, then you could come home, recharge yourself, and then go back out, and you would be fine. But it was just too much. Does that make sense? Like Hong Kong. I lived in Hong Kong. I loved Hong Kong. It's like one of my favorite cities in the world. But the energy was too much for me. So I would have to fly out of Hong Kong to go and get recharged because the vibration is so intense and I just love it. But it was like, no, this doesn't work for me. So I had to go somewhere else. So it's like finding out what's the right fit for you and what's your level or your capacity. When I first came to Vienna, I was being crushed by the darkness so much just from the history on the land. And so it took me years because I really wanted, it was like one of my goals to be stronger than that darkness. So I really worked on my physiology, my heart, my emotions, my spiritual strength to be able to resist that. So now I'm in Vienna, it doesn't bother me. I don't feel it. It's still there. I haven't done anything to it, but I'm able to accept it more. Does that help? So there's different ways. You either move out of the space, and a positive example is when I used to be very mental, right? Always thinking my mind would never stop. And so I would, but there was one time I was in Sydney in Australia and I was on this walk and suddenly my mind went quiet. And it was like a shock because I'd never had that quietness. And I kept walking and suddenly my mind got busy again. So I traced my steps back and I found myself on this rock as on the path, and whatever the energy of the rock, it cleared my mind. It grounded me. So I was like, this is amazing. So I stayed there for about 5 minutes and was enjoying complete peace in my mind. Not a sound, not a word. And then I said, okay, I've got to keep going. So I walked on. But I would go back to Sydney every 3 months or so and walk on that same path until I could walk on the path and feel no difference before or after. So that it was like I had grown in my quietening my mind so that the rock didn't have to save me, so to speak. So I took the responsibility to grow myself. And then I developed it, and I don't know if you have an iPhone, I have an app called 2 Minutes to Focus, or 2 Minutes to Focus. And that's an app that it took me 20 years of a formula to clear the mind. So before you meditate or whatever, you do this 2-minute exercise and it puts you in that meditative state. So your mind goes quiet. That's pretty cool.
Oh, wow. So, just lots of resources you've shared, and life just became more colorful this way. Speak to you about the invisible things and the rock, clearing your mind, and you setting that intention to get to the immunity or the strength to, let all things give you silence of mind, including that rock. So your benchmark was the rock, and you kept working day in and day out to reach that, to remain in that state for remainder of your future. Yeah. This is really a revolutionary information. I say revolutionary because I believe we're all catching up to this spiritual information eventually. Just that we're talking about this openly, that some people already know. Just we are also talking to this in public about this, hoping that people will understand perhaps their behavior and their mental state, and sometimes not to blame too much on themselves, because there are so many things are connected and everything's connected, and there are things we don't understand. It's not really our fault when things feels like it's on our shoulder. Well, I could talk to you forever, Kim, but we, ebbs and flows in life and death, and everything has to come to an end in the bardo aspect. Well, could you, before you go, Kim, what is the best way our audience can contact you and or follow you? You shared a little bit then. But
the best thing would be go to my website, and I have that free download so they can practice the cutting off technique. And also I offer Zoom clearings. I offer this, you can register for if you want a clearing for yourself. I offer different products that they can have a Zoom session with me or one of my team, the clearing team that I have. And that's one way. And then just to get on the newsletter. And I do, each month I do a group transformation session where people can register to be part of a group to have a complete transformation where I'll work on a whole group of people at the same time. And some months I'll do a specific subject that we're focusing on, and others it'll be on just a clearing. Just, hey, I just want to have a quick clean up, half an hour. I need to clear my energy and I just want to be focused for the next week or the next month going forward. So there's different options that people have they can do.
Cool. I would add that to our website. I think you were speaking about spiritual showers here. To our audience, I hope you've received a nugget of wisdom here in our show today. For more inquiry, our website is lifeofemerald.com. Currently, we have 30-day happiness. Our website for that is 30dayhappiness.com. Well, Kim, really nice to have a dialogue with you. And I hope to make this a see you later and see you around. So Kim, do you have any last comment you want to share with our audience before we say see you later?
Well, I'd like to come to Seoul one day, so I'll come and meet up with you in person. Just to everyone to really having a practice of, because we're so stressed in our worlds, to practice every day coming from their heads down to their heart by putting your hands on your heart, feeling your heart. If you can't feel your heart, just feel your hands on your chest and focus on that. And when you can feel your hands on your chest, say, I love myself. And you say it until you feel, if you say, I love myself, it's just words from the head. But if you say it from your heart, below your neck, everything has to happen, but growth happens below the neck. So I love myself, then the vibration shifts in your heart. And you can even add, I forgive myself. And you need to pull it down to the center of your heart so that you, or the heart chakra, so that you can really receive that healing. Forgiveness and love is the strongest on the healing on the planet. So that's what you do. And just do it every day. When you're morning, when you wake up, when you go to bed, do this. And it will just help. And doing it every day is going to help your whole life improve and allow you to come closer to your intuition.
Pretty simple. Thank you. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. Take care.
Till we meet again, please take care, everyone. See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.